would like to commend you, first of all, for planning this memorial service for Lorne. In our culture today, there is an increasing shift to announcements from families saying that there will be no service by request. In contrast to this, you are acknowledging the importance of community, especially the church, as join with you in celebrating the life of a loved one, and also provide space for others to join with you in sharing the burden of your loss. So today we are reflective and also doing a real journey with you. We will all experience some mixed emotions. There may be some relief that Lorne's suffering has ceased. During recent visits, he frequently mentioned that he was ready and wanted to die. He missed Kay immensely. His physical health had declined a lot, so he was limited to what he could do. Turning in his driver's license was a huge thing. Watching dozens of walkers and canes heading for the lunchroom parking lot of Menno was also too much for him. But it's still a sad day, hard and difficult. An era has come to an end. As siblings, you are now orphans, and that link to the larger and extended family story has ceased. To record these memories is now your agenda, and I would encourage you to do that for the benefit of your children and your great-grandchildren and great-grandchildren. There are so many guideposts provided by the rich legacy that Lorne has left behind. The quote that is foundational for growth is that people without a past do not have a future. My friendship with Lorne goes back quite a few years. It was interesting that as time progressed, we discovered that we were quite often on the same page. Once in a while, there was agreement to place some theological or social issues into the trash can. We agreed that contemporary Christian songs would be the ones that would qualify, not for the type of music, but for content, or lack thereof. But last weekend, I was privileged to participate in our church retreat at Camp Squia, and heard a new song, a contemporary song. It made good sense, called Life is a Journey. The journey is long. Come walk with us, it goes. Share our burden and join in the song. Come uplift us and bring us new life. Come give us peace when the journey is long. The journey is long. Come walk with me. The journey is long. I took the liberty, Lorne, to say okay for this one, and I hope you can add it to your okay list as well. It all began, as we've already heard, for Lorne in Siberia, and as a toddler in Moscow in 1929. I'm sure we can almost imagine that he was enjoying the excitement of the large crowd of over 20,000 folks trying to escape the suffering and starvation the war had produced. But only about 6,000 made it. The rest were sent back to who knows where, concentration camps or whatever. Lorne was in the exit crowd, fortunately for him, and later in life he was to struggle with the question, what if? What if? What if he had not made it? What would have the future been like, and what would it look like if he had not made it? So in the world of justice, we proclaim as part of our faith as well, why, he asked the question repeatedly, why did some make it and others did not? So I would those intense questions that Lorne liked to ask. The journey took many twists and turns with the family, landing in Rosemary, as we heard, where his parents started farming, and initially he assumed that with grade 8 he would also qualify to farm, but that changed with various circumstances, and he continued on at RBC and Bible School, CNBC University, and eventually a PhD. He loved learning and teaching. He was a meticulous English teacher. I could almost see the student papers he corrected with large sections of red ink. He was elected as a rather lay minister in Rosemary, and was part of the discussion to address the German-English question in worship. And he mentions in one writing that when he preached his first English sermon, a section of the congregation simply got up and left. A heresy trial was also part of his story. It was during his university study years he made a vow that he would seek the truth, as we have heard, regardless of the consequences. And this was a vow that he kept to his last days. Our son Jonathan, who pastors in Seattle, knows Lorne well from earlier church days, and he sent a text after hearing about Lorne's passing with this short description. He never stopped learning and being curious. I think that says it well. When he studied various subjects and the issues were unclear, he would often say, "I just don't know." For me, this has become such a liberating statement. It's like a breath of fresh air. When so much of our culture and church life nurtures a framework of black and white, my way or the highway, attitudes that have caused so much hurt and division and destroyed so many people and relationships, I just don't know. Thank you, Lorne, for teaching me to conclude that I just don't know sometimes. The journey is to search for truth, and that may often bring us to the conclusion that whatever it is, it may remain a mystery. So on this journey there would be many questions. He was intrigued by scriptures. And Lorne would read through the Bible, the entire sections of the Bible every year. The Psalms were of particular interest, and he thought about the persons who put these words together. Who were they? To be constantly wondering about the nature of God. Why did they describe God the way they did? In Psalm 16, if your love shows me the path of life. Psalm 36, you are a fountain of life. 39, help me to number my days. And this is where Lorne's search would click in. Hey, these words are thousands of years old and coined by folks from another culture and influenced by many ancient, often pagan religions, trying to describe the mysteries and wonders of the Holy One. There are so many variables in these attempts to describe God that Lorne would say we need to look at it in its context and in our context and allow our minds to stretch and our imagination to balloon to express our faith how we see God. These authors did it, so should we. Thank you, Lorne, for encouraging us to think deeply and explore all of the options. And I want to identify some of the significant footprints that he has left for us. He was very concerned about the church, being intensely engaged in many parts of the church during his lifetime. There were tough times when he was edged out of leadership positions and judged relentlessly. There were disappointing times, when there should have been forgiveness and reconciliation, and they were not realized. But all of this could not deter him from the personal goal and vow to seek truth. The second thing I would note is his commitment to that vow. It was impressive, and I think it modeled something for us in terms of making commitments to a certain task. Further was his gift of teaching. He just loved group settings and discussions, and his teaching took him to Thailand and Lithuania, just to name a few. He knew about preparation, organizing material, memorizing it for presentation. While Lorne had quite a mind. I've mentioned this before, that his determination to seek truth also meant that there were times when he would conclude, I just don't know. This has been very helpful to me and many others in his circle of influence, to learn that to say, I don't know, is not a symbol of defeat, but rather wisdom. Both Lorne and Kay were very caring people. Their concern went far beyond themselves and family, to open their hearts and homes to strangers, sponsoring refugees, not just getting them here, but walking with them and learning a new language and helping with education, jobs, and careers, friendships that have lasted to this day. He was committed to education, from a farm boy to a PhD, and often doing this as he was nurturing a family and all the related obligations. He would encourage and help his family to pursue educational goals and many others in their friendship circle. I remember him talking to a group of young people and suggesting that they should set their goals a little higher, and observed that many of them actually did and succeeded. I would also like to conclude, perhaps on a bit of a lighter note, that Lorne was an innovator. Lorne mentioned that when Kay passed, he had a real problem because they always made the bed together. He found a solution, moved to the right side and used pins to attach the sheets and blankets to the mattress, then moved to the other side and finished the job. I think he should have drafted a franchise proposal for this and presented it to the Dragon's Den for fun. Finally, some short comments from our Bible study group that was together with Lorne for around 20 years. We will remember Lorne for having a caring spirit, his in-depth teaching, looking at difficult subjects, considering options, encouraging us to think outside the box. Impressive in how much he read. He was knowledgeable and respectful. He was a great encourager, always affirming us. We want to say thank you, Lorne, for your leadership, for your modeling, for your witness, and your encouragement. So here we are, and I just don't know how to end this. So for you, the family, I will just say, may the shalom of the Holy One be with you.